I'm Dave from Parts for Trucks. So we're going to cover today just how we went from the original C101 dual shaft pump to the more modular design of the Permco MVP. So when I first started in this business, the only pump really in existence at the time was the old dual shaft pump. So this is just your standard dump pump that you see out there in the market today, but most of those were run by drive shaft. So today's, you can see that they're now splined and coupled directly to the power takeoff, but in its day, you would choose whether you needed a right-hand rotation or a left-hand rotation unit, and we would connect your drive shaft to here. And other than the drive shaft, the pump is pretty much exactly the same. So the migration has come from, why complicate things with the drive shaft? It's another piece to break down, it's another piece to service. If we can remove that, then we're going to save you some money and hopefully improve on some efficiencies. That brings us to the granddaddy pump. This is the Parker C102. It's the, as far as I know, it's the original splined dump pump, and it's the one that has the most recognized trade name, being the C102. There are some variations of it, but if you walk into any parts counter and say, I'm looking for a C102, this is what you're going to see. So directly coupled to the power takeoff, unlike it's the C101, which is the drive shaft version. The pump doesn't change much over the years. In fact, it was probably unchanged for, I would say, 25 or 30 years before something else came along and affected the industry. With these, I'm going to have to turn this around here and show you. You've got ports on the back of the pump. You see here, we've got an inlet. This is where the hose comes from the tank that feeds this unit. This is our tank port. I can cover this one in a minute. And this is our cylinder port. So basically, your oil comes in, gravity fed, and your pressure goes out to the cylinder, to your hoist cylinder. Comes back in to return and goes back to the tank. We recommend in all of our systems that you run this third line sleeve. Where the sleeve comes, and it's packaged with every pump that we sell, you put it in the inlet. It goes in and it seats in there, right into the spot. Putting that pump sleeve in the inlet changes the internal workings of the pump, the plumbing, and what that does then is we open up this port, which is labeled as tank, and we plumb that back to the reservoir. Always plumb your line back into oil. Don't have it plumb in from above and splash down. It creates bubbles. You get those into your inlet and you get cavitation. So what we do then is now we have our oil coming into the pump. We have our oil going out to the cylinder. We've maxed out. For some reason, we're into relief. You're either at the top of our cylinder or the load is much heavier than we thought to lift, and it just doesn't have that kind of strength. So what happens then is your pump will start to go into what we call bypass or relief mode. This pump is 27 gallons a minute. All of a sudden, we've got 27 gallons a minute going through the internal workings of this pump through porting about the size of the head of a pen. Where the dump pumps have gone from there, different things have popped up in the industry, different types of transmissions, power takeoff changes, and that's caused some issues. And the first of those issues I'll get into is the spline. So you get into situations now where maybe we're dealing with a Mack that has a PTO mounted on the back of it. The cheapest option for those Mack transmissions, or the Volvo, is to have a power takeoff that is what we call DIN 5462 mount. So this is a 36 millimeter by 8 spline, 4-bolt mount, and it's pretty robust, and it helps bring the cost down because of the PTO only has that same mount and doesn't have adapters in it, which would be needed to make it go to the 7/8/13 like our assortment here has. So this is a change that came out, so not all dump pumps are the same. Sometimes you're going to have to actually separate the dump pump from the power takeoff when you're calling in or trying to identify what you have, because as you can see from the flange back, very similar in their outward appearance, but definitely if you get this 8 spline and you needed a 13, you're going to have some issues. So this is the part of the industry where we've had the greatest amount of change, and this is the automatic transmission and hydraulics for automatic transmission. So our power takeoffs have changed. We're all aware that the PTOs now come with a clutch pack. So what else does that represent for us? A little change. There's not much space in alongside some of these automatic transmissions. So this again, this would be sort of the original. This is the G102 style pump. It was a smaller version of the C102, which was the granddaddy of all dump pumps, but the G102 was much smaller, so it would for the longest time, is the only pump really that would fit alongside of, say, an Allison 3000 or 4000 transmission and be able to direct mount it. The migration that I noticed first and we jumped on was Parker's version of the C102. They call it the Slimline, the SG102. And what happens with this pump is that it's narrower to fit in alongside of the transmission and whatever you have here on the frame rail. So this was the only pump made for that type of application for the longest time. And we stock these regularly and sell quite a few of them and install quite a few of them. We've also run into some other situations where there's more equipment mounted on the truck side from the OEM, making it even difficult to mount some of these. Permco has this one called an MVP, which is a modular design of a dump pump. So it's direct mount, 7/8 13 spline, our 4-inch pilot and 4 bolts. So we don't know this is our SAEB, and these all turn clockwise rotation because it's on an automatic. And what they've done here is there's the basic pump, and we install this on the power takeoff on the transmission. And then what they've done is they've separated the valve. As you can see on our other dump pumps, the valve was molded right to the pump casting. In this case, it's separate and looks like it has an SAE code 61 style flange that we use. Ships with the O-ring, ships with this intact. You have to take it apart out of the box, and then you assemble this onto your power takeoff that's on the transmission, and then add the valve. Be careful of the O-ring. I lost it once myself, but the O-ring goes right in there. You tighten those down to the right torque specs, and it simply attaches to the side. And again, a much more streamlined application for your Allison to allow you to get a pump in there. Where we had our 15 gallons a minute, these can come as high as 27 gallons a minute in the flow. All right, our next option that we have is sometimes you can't fit either of these in here. So what the industry has done is they've taken the valve that you normally see on our regular dump pumps, and it allows you to mount any size gear pump that can fit. So you're going to want to maximize that size if speed is your issue, but at the same time make sure you've got the clearance to get away from whatever was preventing you from entering the out-of-the-box solution. So you would put your gear pump on there, same as you always would, up on the power takeoff, and all we're looking at here is a remote-mounted dump pump valve, right? It's air-shifted. Works the same way. It's just like taking the valve again off of the side of your dump pump and just making it remote mounted so you can mount that anywhere on the truck. The Gemini pump from Permco is a dual pressure pump. Some guys will call it dual stage. It's dual pressure. And I'll mention this one here because we use these both on the standard and the automatic transmission applications. You can see the outward appearance on the Gemini is different by the cylinder on the back. These are used on your walking floors or a live bottom or a belt trailer as we call them, and it allows you to run your dump system at your low pressure 2200 psi, and on the high side if you're running a walking floor or a live bottom you're going to need 2800 psi. That's all done right through here. You've got a pneumatic selector in the cab and it'll select one of the two settings, your low setting and your high setting. But one of the other systems that offers a few more choices and a greater gap in the pressure settings between low and high is our what we call the combo valve, or a dual pressure relief valve that has a tipping feature. So in here we have a single acting cylinder spool, which is the same kind of spool that's in here, and that's for controlling the hoist. This table is filled with the heavy lifters. This is where the work gets done. This is your muscle. To make it operate as efficiently as possible and the way it was engineered to, please check out our video on in-cab controls. Let Parts for Trucks help you navigate these tricky waters to pick the best selection that works for you.